In this video, we're going to give a brief introduction to Chapter 3. And Chapter 3 is probably one of the most important chapters in the entire textbook because this is what lays the foundation for almost all of the chapters to come in the first semester of general chemistry. And what this chapter focuses on is basically the mole. So we introduce the mole, we introduce molecular weights, and this is going to be a major concept that's going to play a part in stoichiometry, which is then going to play a part in all of the other subsequent components of the course. For example, we will have mole calculations in chemical reactions, mole calculations in gases, in thermodynamics, and even down the road when we do spectroscopy and things like that. So this chapter is broken down into four main components. We're going to start with basically the mole concept. So we're going to introduce the mole, and we're going to introduce how it's useful and how to calculate molecular masses. And then we're also going to go over molecular and formula weights. So these two concepts, even though I separate them into two bullet points, they kind of are integrated together into one section of this unit. And this is going to be how can we figure out a relationship between the number of atoms that we have and the mass. That is basically what the mole is. Then the second part of this, the second major part of this, or bullet point number 3, involves determining chemical formulas. So we're going to be able to use our knowledge of the mole to work out how many carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms are in a compound, for example, and in what ratio they're in. So we'll talk about things like percent composition, elemental analysis, and empirical and molecular formulas. And then probably the single most important section of this chapter is stoichiometry. So we're going to learn how to use chemical reactions to allow us to figure out how much of something we would need in order to complete a reaction, or how much of something we would make when we run a reaction given certain amounts of reactants and products. And this will allow us to get into things like theoretical yield and limiting reagents. So overall, this is a really significant chapter. It covers a lot of the groundwork for what is chemical accounting or stoichiometry. Let's take a look at what's available to you to help you out on Blackboard. So in Blackboard, there are a wide range of video tutorials that can be very helpful as you're studying this chapter. And this is something that you can supplement these videos with, because these take you through some problems, and then they also essentially go through the notes in a slightly different way. So this is a really excellent resource. And when you're trying to review for the exam, if there's one component that you need to go back and just brush up on, besides watching our video, these are good videos that can give you a quick overview of a topic. So again, we have our drills and solutions, and we have our slides in here. But the main thing is we have a tutorial. So we have tutorials on the mole, including practice questions. We have tutorial on how to calculate a molecular weight of a compound, how to use molecular weights of compounds, how to do stoichiometry, and then how to calculate an empirical formula from an elemental analysis. And then there's a nice simulation in here that goes over chemical reactions and limiting reagents. That might be something you'll want to play with as you're starting to get used to stoichiometry and starting to think about the basic concept of stoichiometry. I do a little bit of this in lecture where we talk about making sandwiches. This is a very similar type of introduction to it. Not very complex numbers, but it gives you a sense for what is involved in stoichiometry and how it works. So this is what's available to you for Chapter 3. Make sure you make use of what's on Blackboard in addition to the lecture videos.